Hi YouTube family, I thought I'd do a video today about the highs and lows of gardening in my first year in 2019. Well, I'm quite pleased with a lot of the things that have grown. I'll start with say onions. The onions were fantastic. I grew them in a raised bed, well 2 raised beds actually, but I found that I didn't grow enough. I mean, there were some onions that were huge, which I was delighted with, but there were nowhere near enough onions to store. So this year, 2020, well, autumn this year, I'm going to sow a lot more bulbs for next year. But the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to create a much bigger area for the onions. You're always learning about things, and I mean, it's, you know, part of the process, isn't it, really? But I've got a big black sheet that I'm probably gonna move the electric fence back where the donkeys are and create a bigger area for the onions, and I need to do that pretty soon because we grow the onions, don't we, in the autumn. So that's the onions. The runner beans I was really pleased with. You know, I built the big bean station. Well, that's in another video. I was really pleased with that. I was a bit unsure at first whether the growing medium was enough in there, but actually it's worked out really fantastic and got some great beans, and they're still flowering, and I've actually picked and blanched some for the freezer already. So that was great, fantastic. So I'll definitely do that again, and I think also I'll build another one for some different beans, maybe 1 or 2 actually, and I'll do those projects over the winter. As you know, I've got the polytunnel here, and I do grow a few things in it, but it kind of part acts as a shed as well for storing my tools and things that I use in the garden. So it does act as both really, so it's not, I haven't got a total amount of growing space in the polytunnel, but I'm happy with that, you know. And I do like my little gadgets and tools for helping make the raised beds and things like that. So the beans, yeah, that was great. Cauliflowers were a failure. I mean, they got to, I planted those in the raised beds and they got to like a really small head like that, and then they just went straight to seed. So I need to learn a bit more about those, and, or, you know, a bit more information about growing collies. Cabbages were fantastic. Got some great greyhound cabbages with great big heads, and so I was really pleased with them. What else? Purple sprouting broccoli was great. I got some nice spears off of that, and we used that in you know, risottos and things like that. But I think with those they grow quite tall and outgrew the cloches that I made for them, so that's another area I'm going to have to think about. I mean, I do have netting, and maybe that's going to have to be an option for that, and use the plastic balls that they use in the play pit, you know, and put on the corner of the canes and put a big netting over them. That'd be good for that, you know, good for those. The beetroots were fantastic. I did grow them in raised bed in little groups, which I was meant to harvest now and again, which I didn't, so I just left to grow, and I've got some great beetroot from those, so I should do a separate video on how I store those. That'll be another video in the future. And the gourds, I grew some gourds, they're growing great. Again, probably maybe 1 plant per container for that. I mean, they're still growing. I've got some great, they're only what are they called, the oriental gourds, so they're quite small. But as again in one of my previous videos, I did order some seeds from China, and they've actually arrived, which is a lot quicker than I anticipated really, and quite excited to grow those next year. Different varieties, loofah, you know, bottle gourds, and cost next to nothing to order, free shipping. So I'm delighted. The labels are a bit dodgy though. You need to like look at your order and make sure the seeds that you got in there, you label them properly. I mean, they put a little picture, so you could quite easily get them mixed up. Let's see what else. The raspberry plants didn't do great, but this is their first year, but I think I'm going to go a separate area for them and get some more. I mean, nowhere near a great harvest on them either, but we are in a country that gets ever such a lot of rain, so you know the area that I've wanted to do the no dig in, I think I'm going to give that a miss because it's just too wet all the time. It's fighting a losing battle, that really. So that area we're gonna, next year we're going to invest in a nice big greenhouse to grow the tomatoes, because again I spent all that time putting the fencing up and nurturing all these lovely tomatoes along the fence and that, and they all got blight, and they had some lovely trusses on there of tomatoes, and when I went there they was all going brown and the stems were all black spots and that, so it's quite disappointing really, but I suppose that's part of gardening and learning. I do have some in the polytunnel behind me. I've taken all the leaves off, but so I do have some tomato plants behind me, and I've taken all the leaves off of those. These are the beefsteak tomatoes, and there are trusses of tomatoes on there, but I mean we're very late in the year now, and I did sow these in February, so not a great year for tomatoes. So I think it'd be a great idea to get a greenhouse and dedicate it to tomatoes really. Obviously on that no dig part we'll have to get a concrete base put in, and that would be a good foundation for a nice greenhouse, but that's all next year. Carrots, fantastic. They're still growing and we're just harvesting them as we need them, but I also sowed some more seeds in a separate bed, so probably have a load of the carrots in that new bed that I've planted those in, and yeah, so all together quite good. The fruit trees, we didn't, the pear tree sort of got little pears on and then they went black and dropped, so they've obviously got some sort of midge or something on them, so I'm going to have to read a lot about those as well. As for growing flowers, I was absolutely delighted really for the results of the flowers, especially the California poppies. They brightened up the garden, you know, all through the summer, and I'd definitely grow them again. And I also grew some geraniums from seed, which I shall bring in for the winter inside to the polytunnel. I took some cuttings when I was out on a garden centre visit of some deep pink roses. I want to mix them in at the front of the house. We already have a light pink. It grows right along the hedge, so ideally I want these to grow, take more cuttings and then interplant them with the light pink at the front, and they look lovely when they're out, I'm sure. It all takes time, but I'm willing to take the time. So overall some really good results, and some not so good, not with the tomatoes anyway. And I need to also learn a bit more about continual crops, growing them, succession planting. That's a good thing for me to learn over the winter. I've got lots of gardening books, and there's obviously the good old YouTube for fantastic information. So if you follow my channel, I'm sure all over the winter I'll be working to get the garden ready for a new planting season. I'll be doing some new little projects, but obviously I have to do them in the polytunnel, and because we do get quite a bit of rain and we'll have the colder weather, but that doesn't worry me. But I'd like to sort of carry on working through the winter and know that when the spring comes I'm all ready for putting the things in. We've already ordered some elephant garlic for this year, well for 2020, but that gets sent out in a couple of weeks time. Elephant garlic and some onion sets, so I need to get cracking really with this area for the onions, and I will do that, and be fantastic. I hope all your season was great, and let me know in the comments what you were pleased about in your garden, and what was a success and what was a failure. I'd love to know. Anyway, take care, you lovely people. Speak to you soon. Bye.